So one of the most common statements I hear among beginning wrestlers is something in this fashion. I just began wrestling and wow, it requires so much cardio and strength, I need to work on those areas, or I was dead after just 3 minutes of wrestling, this is the hardest sport I've ever done. I mean, yes, initially those are legit statements, of course. I mean, we all remember our first wrestling practices, right? This is one of the toughest sports in existence, I'm not even kidding. But what's the problem here? The problem is that those people who say those things, who think it's so hard, they will start sacrificing their wrestling practices, the freaking backbone of everything, and they will start working on their conditioning elsewhere or hit the gym, lift the weights, hit the treadmill. They say, I'm not ready for this yet, let me get physically prepared first. So they are skipping all of those vital wrestling practices, the backbone of everything, where you go through fundamental techniques, sprawls, double leg takedowns, leverages, the feeling for the sport, the sparring sessions, and what do they do instead? They hit the freaking treadmill, thinking they will become better wrestlers. I mean, do you even hear how crazy this sounds? Sure, obviously, by all means work on your conditioning, but don't sacrifice the wrestling, the backbone. You can do both of them. First of all, this is a combat sport, okay? You're going toe to toe with another man or a woman. It's a battle, it's a fight. And for many, this is the first time being in such a situation. You will be tense, you will be anxious, you will get adrenaline. If you've been a kid once, like been in a school fight, you know how you felt that way, right? You will probably experience a similar feeling here. Some people will even panic, especially when they experience an ass-kicking, if you will, for the first time. The conditioning, whatever you may think, the conditioning is not the biggest factor here. You could be an elite swimmer, a rower, a world-class runner with high levels of endurance or lactic acid capacity, and you will still get tired almost immediately the first time wrestling. I have seen many instances where this happens. Let me explain. Do you remember that last time you were in a critical situation, like being chased by a dog or getting into a physical alteration with someone over anything? It probably went by quickly, right? But you were probably also exhausted afterwards. You would be breathing very heavily and you could feel the cramps and lactic acid in your muscles. You were probably coughing. This is because you were anxious and extremely aroused. When your body is overly aroused, you will become more tense than usual and your energy expenditure will be off the charts, more than normal. That's what's known as a fight or flight response, where the sympathetic nervous system is activated. And this is what happens when you are new in wrestling as well. Your first practices will most probably be this way and you will have to work through it. Skipping wrestling practices to improve your endurance on a treadmill will not solve the problem. You need the fundamentals here. The only way to solve this problem is by field experience, which happens in the wrestling mat. Wrestling is something new to your body and you will therefore find it hard to relax at the first times. As time goes on, you will realize, hey, it's just wrestling, why am I acting like it's a life and death situation? Your body will become loose, you will be light on your feet, takedowns will be smoother, you will become cost effective, you will spend less energy, your arms will relax, your shoulders will relax. It basically becomes like a dance for you. When you dance, you can't be a robot, you have to be relaxed. The same is the case in wrestling. So the next time you're wrestling, deliberately try to relax. Imagine your body is made of this spaghetti and you're this loose creature that doesn't get tense. Even if you're anxious, still imitate the body language of a relaxed athlete. In time, your body will act accordingly, it will respond to that. So for that purpose, I have an exercise for you. The next time you're in a wrestling practice, put your pride aside and choose to wrestle with the most skilled or the scariest guy you know in the room. That person you always want to avoid when the coach says, hey, it's time for wrestling. Face what's about to come and approach it in a relaxed manner. You're a beginner, you have absolutely nothing to lose. Who gives a shit if you get taken down 10 times in a row? Get taken down, take risks. Attempt to take him or her down. Get comfortable in this situation that you once perceived as dangerous. Don't be afraid. Put your fucking pride aside. Relaxation is not to be confused with being weak. You can be relaxed and still be powerful and strong. It simply means that you're wise about your energy expenditure. You're greedy about it and you don't want to waste it. Learning to relax is a never-ending process. Let's take world-class wrestlers for example. Most people think all they do is train, eat and sleep and that's it. You then become a world-class wrestler and then some make it and some don't. It has never even occurred to some people that world-class wrestlers actually spend a huge amount of their time on mental preparation and relaxation. This is done through visualization techniques, self-talk, and various breathing exercises. Trust me, this is a thing, they do it. All wrestlers have their own routines to calm themselves down before an important event. And if world-class wrestlers work on relaxation techniques, all those gold medalists, what makes you think you shouldn't? What makes you think you're special? Are you better than them? Skill and technique is the cornerstone of wrestling. It's the backbone, like I talked about earlier. You have such a big advantage if you have superior skills, even if your opponent is better conditioned, have better endurance or is stronger, bigger, whatever you want. See, the thing is, when your technique and leverage is good, the demand of energy is low. And if your technique and leverage is bad, the demand of energy is high. This means that if you go for a double leg takedown, for example, and you have perfected timing and technique perfectly, that execution will cost you almost nothing because you have such a good leverage. It's like trying to nail something down with your hands compared to a hammer. With a hammer you have perfect technique and leverage, whereas if your technique is questionable and your timing is off, you might still be able to pull the takedown off, but it will cost you a shit ton of energy. You might have to use all of your strength. It could be a gigantic scramble. Why go for that expensive options when you can get this for a better deal? If you're trying to solve this problem by simply doing more strength training and more endurance training, you're making things very hard for yourself. Why not work on your skill and technique for your sport primarily before emphasizing conditioning? Are you getting close enough to execute the takedown? How is your back position here? Are you using your whole body when you lift your opponent or just your arms? I say this all the time. In all my videos, strength and conditioning is merely a supplement to wrestling, and I am a strength and conditioning coach myself. You would probably expect me to advertise strength and conditioning. Oh, do this, you'll become a world-class wrestler. No, this is a supplement. Trust me, work on your sport primarily first. Imagine you have this bucket full of holes that you want to fill with water. No matter how much water you fill it with, the holes are still there and the water is leaking out. Instead of addressing the holes first, you simply fill the bucket with more water. Are you helping yourself solve the problem? No. The holes are always there. You need to cover them first. If you want to see wrestling skill and leverage expressed perfectly, like a dance, like a work of art, take a look at this Russian wrestler. I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly. Zaitsev. This is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He has 3 Olympic gold medals, 6 world medal golds. He didn't even have an imposing physique and his conditioning was probably average for a wrestler in his caliber. So what was it that made him so special? It was his skill, his understanding of leverage. It was out of this freaking world. He was a chess master, he was smart, he was a poet. He went in there and he danced. He out-techniqued everyone he faced. He spent little energy while his opponents did the opposite. If his opponents were stronger than him, they came at him like a bull, like a gorilla, always pushing forward, he would use that against them, like ragdoll them, send them flying to the air. It's like a comedy, it's like you watch a freaking cartoon. When people transition to wrestling from other sports, they will often bring the mindset or routines of that sport with them. And this can interfere with the demands of wrestling. For instance, say you are a basketball player. A whole training session could be just practicing passes or dunking or whatever, and some sessions may be low effort and some sessions will be more tiring, more heavy sessions. This, however, is not the case in wrestling. Every single wrestling session, like 99 out of 100, is a tough conditioning session already, because wrestling alone is of such intensive nature. You are wrestling as well as building conditioning yourself. 2 birds in 1 stone. Every session. You can't play wrestling. After a wrestling practice, lactate levels are high, the heart rate is up, muscles get sore, you're working on your cardio, your buffering capacity, your strength. Everything is emphasized when you're wrestling. This is why it is so freaking important to not sacrifice your wrestling sessions, especially if you're new. Otherwise you will not get that wrestling specific conditioning that you can get nowhere else. Bottom line is this. Don't sacrifice wrestling sessions for strength and conditioning. Without proper skills and technique, your conditioning will not be useful. Wrestling comes first, conditioning second. Learn how to relax, especially if you're new. Otherwise, you will waste a lot of energy. If your technique is superior, you will spend less energy for every action because you will get good leverage. Thank you.